Good afternoon. We are Robyn and Alan, and I want to kick us off with a little bit of a reflective exercise. So think a little bit about a course that you maybe designed, maybe participated in, observed. What was your experience in the first module to the first couple weeks? What grabbed your attention? What maybe was not so interesting? What was a failure? So keep these thoughts, and we'll revisit this a little bit later.
Cool. I got one. So to start with an acknowledgement that this is a little bit of weird presentation, and that what I'm kicking off with is some 2U data from our graduate degree programs. There's going to be some data from edX.org as well. But I want to start with a definition of terms. So a click rate seems intuitive. Number of students that click a individual piece of content in a section divided by number of students that clicked on any content in a section. So you can go to the next slide. So there's two things that might look scary on this slide. I tried to call out one with the pink dots there. The one thing I'll just kind of try and dispel is that 80% click rate might seem low for graduate degree content. You have to keep in mind, because of what the denominator is, if students switch sections to another time, if they drop the class, they're still in the denominator this entire time. Also, some content might just be literally labeled optional. So I wouldn't worry about that. But the stuff in pink is alarming and kind of where this started, which is when we have modules, which are roughly equivalent to section numbers, modules 1, 2, and 3 typically have some kind of, it's some housekeeping stuff. It's at least module 1, sometimes also 2, and sometimes also 3. So the first question is why? Like what is going on here that's getting students not to click on stuff at the beginning of a course? Because in a degree program, it's still interesting, we want to understand. It's not necessarily a critical problem. Like, no one's paying $20,000 to enroll in a degree getting annoyed at content in the first module and then be like, this isn't worth it. But for an open enrollment course, where the attention span of a student, whether they're making that decision, might just be 5-10 minutes, like this could be scary. So next slide. So to the question of what is in those first 3 modules. So on the left, this is, again, modules 1, 2, and 3 only, so those pink dots. Kind of my attempt to group this content by keyword of the title. So you have stuff that is explicitly labeled optional. Great. You have stuff that is labeled intro, and I've got that broken down on the right. And then I just have other content, the other stuff that I couldn't obviously identify as something that doesn't fit into the first 2 categories. So 3 categories of stuff up here if you switch over to the right? So if you're talking about stuff students are least likely to click on, it's stuff about the professor. I'm sorry, professors. You go down to the middle category. It's the stuff that looks like the normal intro content, although funnily enough, this is titled Why About This Course is a Bad Way to Start. None of our courses start with About This Course, so I could have relabeled that. But the last is a little bit gimmicky. I kind of like, the idea is often you want to start with a hook, some question posing to students. So if you start with these kinds of words, you get higher click rates. There's nothing magical about these words. I would just kind of label that as stuff that obviously isn't labeled as intro content, right? Something that kind of is a more substantive title that kind of covers the subject matter. So everything I've talked about up until this point is 2 degree data. And I want to be able to bring something to this conversation that's also more directly relevant to the Open edX community. Next slide. This is a different metric. But it suggests we're seeing something similar, if not to the same degree. So we switched the metric. This isn't click rates anymore. This is now video complete rate. And this is the same calculation. I know edX Insights hasn't gotten a great reputation so far this weekend. But this is that calculation that you see on video complete rate if you're familiar with it. And I've broken it out, kind of the average all-time highest enrolling courses on edX.org. I've also specifically split out How to Learn Online because we have Robyn, who is the lead author of that course, and who better to speak to it, because not only do you see this similar dynamic where in the beginning, the complete rates start lower and then tick up, but she's built a course where engagement rates, sorry, I should be more specific. The video complete rates are higher in general, but that initial dynamic is more pronounced. Students aren't completing the first video. So I think on that, I'm a data guy. I pull stuff and try and share insights. Robyn is the instructional designer. She can speak. Oh, just kidding. I have one more slide. So is this a problem? I want to start with, to use an analogy from another industry. Movies used to start with the credits. They stopped in around the 70s. And one of the most common reason, I believe, is that movies started to go onto television. So if you're going onto television, you have a remote in your hand, you don't want to start with the opening credits, because you can click away to something else pretty quickly. For courses, as courses have gone online and it's easier for students to click away, what have we done? And are we doing enough to stop the click away? So, Robyn.
So I really like this analogy, comparing courses to movies a little bit, because courses are really video heavy sometimes. So think about the creative adjustments that movie makers have deployed over time to grab audiences' attention. Shifting credits, especially all the really long credits towards the end. I mean, when we're going to see a movie, we already know why we're there. We've already gotten a quick synopsis through a trailer or something like that. We know who the stars are. So transferring that to MOOCs, things that might be a little bit disengaging in a MOOC is typical housekeeping type content, like regurgitating your syllabus, or, you said instructor bios, but I have another comment about that. And, putting more engaging content front and center in your first two modules. So, engagement. So Alan has set the stage with the metrics, with the data, showing us engagement drop-off in the first couple modules. And engagement is key. So I'm going to talk briefly about mitigation, how you can make the first couple modules, even first 3 modules, kind of more punchy. And I think we saw something from Darcy's presentation with the pre and post surveys. You can have something like that right in your first module, right in your first week, and that's a great metacognitive tool to help learners gauge their baseline understanding and how to, or at least identify what they need to work on later on in the course when that post survey comes up. And I said a moment ago, avoid housekeeping kind of content. That stuff is very important. The syllabus is really important, but it doesn't need to be, again, in your first module. It could be somewhere else in the course that's easy to find. And, give learners a way to start building community from the start. And this can kind of support the domains that we saw in the Sebal presentation with interpersonal skills, communication, building relationships. So this is super basic, super low stakes, but having an icebreaker discussion in your first module. And everybody hates discussions, but the important thing is having a well-crafted prompt. And the instructor can kind of model the sort of discussion or the introduction that they want to see in the course. Again, low or no stakes activities for other kind of learning activities like the pre and post surveys, and instructor bios are actually pretty great. And as long as they are, they can be a way to build up instructor presence. So in How to Learn Online, Anant has a video. And it may at first seem a little bit like a housekeeping kind of thing, because it's a welcome to the course, but what he's doing that's really fabulous is framing the need for How to Learn Online. That course was spun up at the height of the pandemic, and yes, it could probably use some updating, but that video is great because it welcomes learners into the course in a really nice way, and he talks about some other things, and then the next activity is a discussion. And we are asking learners why they're there, what do they hope to get out of the course, and build that community. And I think that is the end of our talk.
Yeah.